Stepson, your tool is so big. Welcome back to Real Infidelity Stories, where we bring you another captivating tale of passion and unexpected connections. If you enjoy these juicy stories, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. I'm Rebecca, a 42-year-old stepmom who never thought I would find myself in a situation like this. My husband, Mark, is a successful businessman, always glued to his phone or buried in work. While I appreciate his dedication, it often leaves me feeling neglected and alone. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself longing for companionship and intimacy, craving the affection that had slowly faded from our relationship. I often thought about how I could bring back the spark in my life. The nights felt especially lonely when I'd hear Mark's footsteps echoing through the house as he retreated to his study, leaving me in the silence of our once vibrant home. I missed the thrill of romance, the warmth of a tender embrace, and the excitement of being desired. My thoughts wandered to my stepson, Jake, a handsome 24-year-old who had recently moved back home after finishing college. Jake had always been respectful and polite, but there was an undeniable chemistry between us. He had grown into a striking young man, and I found myself stealing glances at him, my heart racing whenever our eyes met. I knew it was wrong, but the more I pushed the feelings away, the stronger they became. One afternoon, I decided to change my clothes after a long day of waiting for Mark to come home. I was about to wear a silk robe when I caught my reflection in the mirror. I sighed, wishing for the days when I felt desired and beautiful. I made my way to the bedroom where I could lose myself in thoughts of what could be. As I opened my bra hooks and was about to put on my robe, suddenly I heard the door creak open. It was Jake, returning home unexpectedly. "Hey, Rebecca," he said casually, a bright smile lighting up his face as he entered. My heart raced. I quickly grabbed my robe to cover up, but it was too late. Jake's eyes widened slightly as he took in the sight of me. "Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt," he stammered, his gaze lingering on me a moment too long. "It's fine," I said, trying to play it cool. "I was just changing." I could feel a flush creeping up my cheeks. We stood there in an awkward silence, the air thick with unspoken tension. I could sense a shift between us, an electric current that was hard to ignore. Jake shifted his weight from one foot to the other, his eyes flicking back to me as if he were debating something in his mind. "I should probably go," he finally said, taking a step back toward the door. "Wait!" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. "You don't have to leave. We can talk." He hesitated, his gaze searching mine. The desire bubbling beneath the surface felt palpable, and I knew I had to take a chance. "Jake, I've been feeling a bit lonely lately. It's hard being here without Mark around." "I know we haven't really connected like we could," he replied, his voice low. "It's been weird with him being so busy all the time," I said. I took a deep breath, feeling bold. "What if we spent some time together, just the two of us?" To my surprise, a smile broke across his face. "I'd like that." As if drawn by an invisible force, I stepped closer to him, the space between us shrinking until we were just inches apart. My heart raced. I could feel the warmth radiating from his body, the chemistry between us undeniable. "Jake, I want to be honest. I've thought about you a lot more than I should," I confessed, looking into his eyes. "Me too," he admitted, stepping closer, a nervous excitement evident in his voice. In that moment, all my fears faded away as I leaned in, capturing his lips with mine. The kiss was tentative at first, but quickly deepened, igniting a fire within me that I hadn't felt in years. His hands found their way to my waist, pulling me closer as we melted into each other. I broke the kiss breathless and exhilarated. "This is so wrong," I murmured, my heart racing. "Maybe," he replied, his voice husky with desire. "But it feels so right." Before I could think about the consequences, I pulled him back into another kiss, my fingers tangling in his hair. The kiss quickly turned more passionate, his hands exploring my back as I pressed against him. I could feel the heat radiating from his body, and every touch sent shivers down my spine. As we broke apart, I looked into his eyes, seeing the same mix of excitement and fear reflected back at me. "Are we really doing this?" I whispered, feeling breathless. "Yes," he said firmly by gripping my chest and pressing them against him. "I want this, Rebecca. I've wanted you for a long time." With those words, I felt emboldened. I stepped back slightly and took his hand, leading him toward the bed. The moment felt surreal, and yet I was ready to embrace it. As we sat on the edge of the bed, I leaned in closer, our lips meeting again more urgently this time. Jake's hands roamed my body, exploring every curve as I melted into his touch. I could feel the heat building between us, igniting a fire I'd not felt in years. My fingers traced along his jawline. I could see the desire burning in his eyes. "Let's not hold back," I said breathlessly, feeling exhilarated by my own boldness. With a nod, he leaned in again, kissing me deeply. I could feel him pressing against me, his body hot and eager as my hands explored his chest, feeling the solid muscles beneath his shirt. I knew I wanted more, and the thought thrilled me. Slowly, I pushed him back onto the bed, straddling him as I kissed him with urgency. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with surprise and excitement. "I never expected this," he breathed, his hands gripping my hips. "Neither did I replied, my voice low and sultry. "But it feels too good to stop now." As we continued kissing, I could feel him responding to my every touch, our bodies moving in sync as well. I started to slide my hands under his shirt, exploring his toned abdomen, feeling the warmth of his skin. He let out a soft groan, and that sound sent shivers down my spine. "God, Rebecca, you're incredible," he whispered, his hands moving to my back, pulling me closer as I ground against him. I loved how he looked at me, the desire in his eyes fueling my confidence. "I want to feel you," I whispered, my voice thick with longing. "Then let's not waste any more time," he said, his hands finding the hem of my robe, pulling it apart. As I gasped at the sensation of being exposed to him, he took in my body. I felt a thrill of excitement. "You're beautiful," he murmured, leaning in to kiss my collarbone, igniting a fire within me. I could feel heat rising and let myself succumb to pleasure of this moment. His hands roamed over my body, igniting every nerve ending as he kissed down my neck, sending waves of pleasure coursing through me. I let out a soft moan, arching my back against him as he continued his trail of kisses. "More," I urged, my body craving his touch. With newfound confidence, Jake sat up, his hands gripping my waist as he turned us over, pinning me against the bed. His eyes sparkled with mischief and desire as he leaned in for another kiss, capturing my lips with fervor. I could feel his weight pressing against me, and every moment felt electric. I grabbed his tool and was shocked by his size. It was so big that I couldn't hold it anymore. As I tasted it, he started moaning, and I wanted it more. We lost ourselves in each other, the world outside fading away as we explored our desires. The room was filled with soft whispers and the sound of our bodies moving together. Every touch, every kiss was more intoxicating than the last. As we tangled together, I felt a sense of freedom I hadn't experienced in years. I wanted to explore every inch of him, to lose myself in the moment. Our bodies moved in perfect harmony, igniting a fire that consumed us both. Eventually, as the passion simmered, we fell into a comfortable embrace, catching our breath. I looked into Jake's eyes, feeling a sense of joy and excitement I hadn't felt in so long. But just as I started to relax, the doorbell rang again, pulling me from my blissful state. "What was that?" I asked, my heart racing as the reality of our situation crashed over me. "It's probably your husband," Jake said, his eyes wide with panic. "Mark wasn't supposed to be home for hours," I exclaimed, scrambling to fix my robe. "Quick, we have to hide," Jake said, glancing toward the door. We jumped up frantically, trying to put ourselves back together. Just as we managed to get somewhat presentable, I heard Mark's voice coming from the hallway. "Rebecca, are you home?" he called out, sounding cheerful. Yeah, I'm in the bedroom," I called out, my heart racing as I glanced at Jake, who looked just as flustered as I felt. "Stay quiet," I whispered urgently, and Jake nodded quickly, slipping into the closet just as Mark walked through the door. Mark entered with a smile on his face as he caught sight of me. "I didn't think you'd be home. How was your day?" he asked, stepping closer. "Just the usual," I said, forcing a smile and trying to act as normal as possible. "How was yours?" "Busy as always," he replied with a sigh. "But I thought I'd take a break and spend some time with you." I nodded, feeling a mix of guilt and excitement. I could still feel Jake's presence lingering in the air, his warmth and the thrill of our shared moments. I had to push those thoughts aside as I tried to engage with Mark, who seemed oblivious to the tension hanging between us. As the evening progressed, Mark and I settled onto the couch, sharing casual conversation, but my mind kept wandering back to Jake and the electric connection we had just shared. My heart raced every time I thought about it, igniting a fire within me that I couldn't ignore. A few days later, while Mark was out for another late-night meeting, I found myself alone at home again, my thoughts consumed with the memory of our last encounter. I had missed the thrill of being wanted, of feeling alive. I decided to take a long, relaxing bath to ease the tension, hoping it would help calm my racing thoughts. I lit a few candles and filled the tub with warm water, letting the steam envelop me. As I soaked, I found my mind drifting back to Jake, the way his hands explored my body, the passion in his kisses. It was intoxicating. I felt a rush of heat at the memory and knew I needed to see him again. Just then, I heard the soft sound of a knock at the door. My heart skipped a beat as I quickly wrapped a towel around myself before opening the door, revealing Jake standing there with a mischievous grin on his face. "Hey," he said, his eyes sparkling. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." "Not at all," I replied, my heart racing at his unexpected arrival. "Come in." As he stepped into the bathroom, I felt a rush of excitement at having him so close again. "I was just taking a bath," I said shyly, trying to hide my nerves. "Looks inviting," he said, his gaze lingering on me as I leaned against the doorframe. "Mind if I join you?" I hesitated for just a moment, my heart racing at the thought of being so close to him again, but the thrill was too strong to resist. "Sure, why not?" In an instant, Jake stepped into the bathroom, closing the door behind him. The atmosphere felt charged with anticipation as I watched him slowly undress, my breath hitching as he revealed his toned body. Every part of me ached to touch him, to explore the heat that radiated from him. As he slipped into the tub beside me, the warm water surrounded us, creating a bubble of intimacy. We exchanged nervous glances before our lips collided in a heated kiss, the water splashing around us as I melted into him. His hands found my waist, pulling me closer as I tangled my fingers in his hair. Kisses quickly deepened, filled with hunger and desire, as we lost ourselves in the moment. I could feel the warmth of his body against mine, igniting a fire that spread through me. "You're even more beautiful than I remember," Jake whispered against my lips, his breath warm against my skin. I smiled, feeling flattered. "And you're more irresistible every time I see you." With newfound confidence, I pushed him back against the tub, straddling him as I pressed my body against his. The water swirled around us, but I was lost in the sensation of his skin against mine. My fingers traced down his chest, relishing the feel of his muscles under my touch. "Rebecca," he breathed, his voice filled with longing. "You have no idea how much I've wanted this." "Show me," I replied, my voice sultry as I leaned in for another kiss, this time more fervent. The world outside faded away as we explored each other, the water mingling with our desires as our kisses became more urgent. I could feel his hands roaming my body, tracing every curve as I lost myself in his touch. The thrill of being so close to him sent shivers down my spine, igniting every nerve ending. I leaned back slightly, allowing him to kiss down my neck, savoring the sensation of his lips against my skin. God, Jake, I gasped, my body arching toward him, craving more. With a low growl of desire, he cupped my face, his thumbs brushing over my cheeks, as he pulled me in for another searing kiss. I could feel the heat building between us, a powerful force that drew us closer together, urging us to explore more. The water around us became a blur as we tangled together, lost in the heat of the moment. My hands explored his body, tracing over his shoulders and down his arms as he deepened our kiss, each movement igniting the passion between us. Suddenly, I felt a rush of boldness and pulled away slightly, looking into his eyes. "Let's take this further," I whispered, my heart racing at the thought. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice thick with desire. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," I replied, my heart racing with anticipation. With that, we moved together, the warm water surrounding us as we embraced the heat of our desires. We pressed against each other, our bodies entwined in the moment. As the passion escalated, our breaths mingled as we lost ourselves in the pleasure of being together. Hours seemed to melt away as we surrendered to our desires, exploring every inch of each other and feeling the warmth of our connection grow. It was a whirlwind of kisses, soft whispers, and tender caresses, leaving us both breathless. Eventually, as the water cooled around us, we pulled apart slightly, gazing into each other's eyes and feeling the connection that had blossomed between us. I felt exhilarated, alive in a way I hadn't experienced in years. But just as we began to relax, the sound of the front door echoed through the house and we exchanged worried glances. "Mark's home!" I exclaimed, panic rising within me. "Quick, we have to get out of here," Jake said, scrambling out of the tub. We both hurriedly dried off and threw on our clothes, the tension palpable as we tried to make ourselves presentable. Just as I finished adjusting my hair, I heard Mark's voice call out again. "Rebecca, I'm back," he shouted. "We need to hide," Jake said urgently, glancing toward the door. I nodded and we both ducked into the closet, our hearts racing as we heard Mark enter the bathroom. The two of us stood close together in the darkness, our breaths mingling as we waited for the tension to dissipate. Mark began to wash his hands at the sink, oblivious to the chaos that had just unfolded in his home. "How was your day, Rebecca?" he asked, his tone casual. "Just relaxing," I replied, my heart pounding in my chest as I exchanged a nervous glance with Jake. After a few tense moments, Mark finished and left the bathroom, allowing us to breathe a sigh of relief. "Wow, that was close," Jake whispered, his eyes wide with excitement. "I know. I can't believe we just—" I began. But before I could finish, he leaned in and kissed me softly, reminding me of the thrill we had just shared. "We can't stop now," he said, his voice low with urgency. "This is just the beginning." I felt my heart racing again, caught between the thrill of our secret and the reality of my life with Mark. But deep down, I knew that whatever was happening between Jake and me was something I couldn't resist. I was ready to embrace this new chapter, wherever it might lead us. As we stepped out of the closet, the tension hung in the air, electric with possibility. We both knew that our lives would never be the same again. The thrill of the forbidden lingered, and I was ready to dive deeper into this unexpected romance, no matter what it took.